ni rempeyek ni. Teri goreng yang sebelah ni?
You don't even know. You were going to quiz me on this.
Terrible. I'm probably born a New Yorker without me knowing or something because I'm terrible at Malaysian food. Keripik pisang, there you go. This is the only one that I know by heart. The other two, I'm terrible.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, let's go.
People always assume that connection with the Qur'an should be an instant thing.
And you know what? Allah designed it in a way that when you read it, you're going to end up with more questions than answers.
Will we ever properly complete the Qur'an?
If all of humanity was engaged in diving into the Qur'an, we still wouldn't be able to complete the Qur'an. But in our relationship with Allah, it's not what you get at the end. It's actually the entire effort that's rewarded. As a culture, we have turned this into a joke. For example, a crisis happens in the world. We didn't see you post anything about the crisis. Did you even make dua for the crisis? I didn't know. You don't go straight to Allah. You first go to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and then from there it goes to Allah.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm Keanu Azman. It's so good to be back right here on Faith Fuel Podcast. As you all know, in Faith Fuel Podcast, we are trying to be like the Ron 97 or Ron 95 every time you are out of petrol when you're driving, or we're trying to be the power bank every time your phone is out of battery, but in terms of faith and iman. Okay, we've had a list of amazing panelists and guests on the show, and today it is very surreal to be sitting right in front of the one and only Ustadh Nouman Ali Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Ustadh. How are you?
Walaikum salam. I'm doing well. How are you?
Very, very well. Now, Ustadh, of course, you know, you've been sharing about your personal journey in so many different places already, different podcasts and interview. So I don't want to dig back to that context in the same way.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, alhamdulillah, yes. Thank you. I think Ustaz was really like, oh my goodness, here we go again.
No. I would have dodged it.
Don't worry, this is where Keanu Azman comes in. Now, we know that you had quite the journey, you know, from that point where you were an atheist for a particular point in your life, which I find very interesting looking at how you are right now and how you inspire so many people. You pull so many different people to Islam as well, alhamdulillah. What is something that you've learned over the years that perhaps those who are struggling in their faith, even though they're born Muslims, you know, but perhaps they're still struggling to find that, not knowing, am I just a born Muslim? Is it just because of familial pressures that I'm still a Muslim? What is something that you've learned through your own experience?
Well, a couple of things. I think I'd like to start by saying that I wasn't looking to inspire anybody. I'm still not. I look for what I find insightful, and then I talk about it because I benefited from it. Yeah. And I think people find inspiration in different places. And if they find inspiration in that, it's not because I was deliberately looking to inspire them. Which leads me to the answer to that question. Like, I think faith in the end is a very personal commitment. And the outside motivations, inspirations, reminders, etc., all of that stuff is like an energy boost. It was a good way to put it in the intro, the way you said it. But it's not your nutrition. That's not the actual faith. That's just an extra kick every now and then, right? What's happened is that we've outsourced the faith itself to these boosters. So I just need this kind of, another reminder, another dose, and then I'm going to feel like I have iman. And then the moment I don't have that for a while, there's a dip again. Yeah. Which means there's something deeply internal missing. Yeah. That even if you had no reminder, no inspiration, no motivation, no role model, no mentor, where would your faith be? Right? We proudly call ourselves the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam, which is the religion of no support system. Actually, Ibrahim alayhi salam has no support system. Yeah. Right? And if you look at the Qur'an's model of people that inspire us, the vast majority of them don't have a support system, or have barely any support system. And now we've created this: I need the environment, I need the reminder, I need to surround myself. Like we've become created a spiritual codependency on all this stuff. Yeah. So when somebody says I'm struggling with my faith, I think the most important conversation they need to be having is with themselves and with Allah in a very serious kind of way, not through someone else, but themselves. Right.
I love that, conversations with yourself and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
And we all know, I mean, Alhamdulillah, the Quran is, our best friend. And we know your connection towards the Quran is really, really strong. You immediately felt that love for the Quran. You even learned Arabic and felt the attachment towards the language itself, which honestly, Ustaz, I'm just struggling with till now. I brought a very good friend of mine here as well, who's been trying to teach me Arabic till this day, and to no avail. I really need to know your ways because, you went through that phase yourself. It's so difficult. For me, I try with the genders and everything. What is the best way to finally be able to master the language?
Don't worry about Arabic first. Just don't worry about it. Worry about, and you said I have a really strong connection with the Quran.
Yeah.
No, I have a really long experience studying the Quran and engaging with the Quran, but a connection with the Quran is a daily struggle for everybody. And the way that I like to describe spirituality, being a student of the Quran, your connection with Allah, the stability of your connection with Allah is directly related to the stability of your connection with the Quran. And if one of them is unstable, the other starts faltering.
Right.
This is the final spiritual connection God gave to humanity.
Yeah.
And so, that's easy to say. It's almost become sort of a catchphrase to say connect with the Quran. But what does that actually practically mean? Like in your mind, you said, well, maybe if I learned Arabic, that would mean I have a deep connection with the Quran, right? So, and somebody says, maybe if I memorized, I have a deep connection with the Quran. Somebody said, if I listen to a lot of recitation. It seems we don't have a clear definition or a clear pathway. What does it actually mean when somebody says connect with the Quran? Right? The Quran, first and foremost, is a message. Right? And it's like let's take an analogy. Somebody sent you an important text message or an email. It's a message. And the first thing you want to do is to make sure you understand who that message is from and what it is conveying to you. Why is it important to you? Is it urgent or not? Right? What is its value? Because we're in the age of media and content, it's actually easy to make the analogy. When there's a major event coming, there's a live pay-per-view coming on the UFC or something. Or there's a major live broadcast or something else.
An award show is coming soon.
An award show, something that the world is kind of excited about or talking about, and it's anticipating, etc. Then the way you're going to free your time up for it, the way you're going to immerse yourself in it, the way you wouldn't want to miss a second of it, the way you're going to engage in conversations about it afterwards. All of that is an indication of how much that meant to you personally, right? Now think about Allah sending a message to humanity, a surah, right? If I don't have a sense of value for this quote unquote content, this is a mindset thing. It's not just me reading a translation. This is God speaking to me.
Right.
And you know what? I can tell you frankly, the Quran, Allah designed it in a way that when you read it in translation, for most people in translation, right? You're going to end up with more questions than answers. You're going to say, what? What is this? What does this mean? How do I relate to this? Why is it repeating itself? Why did the subject change? Wasn't that already said somewhere else? And then you're, at that point, you have two choices. You could just say, well, it's Allah, I don't know anything. I could just keep going.
At least I read it.
At least I read it. Right? But did you connect? This is a hard question, right? You didn't connect.
Right.
You didn't connect. And there are places consistently, virtually on every page in the Quran, there's some reason for you to feel, wait, I don't get it. And this is Allah's design. And Allah designed it that way for you to stop and say, I need to figure this out.
Right. Through tafsir, perhaps?
First of all, through asking yourself the question.
Asking yourself first.
First and foremost. Because Allah is speaking to you, not to a mufassir.
Right. You.
Right. And then what questions, I like to tell people that want to get serious about Quran study, when you study Quran, document your questions. Like what stopped you, what confused you, if there's a why that came in your head, a what that came in your head, a who that came in your head. Write it out.
Immediately write it down.
Immediately write it down. Okay. When I was studying this ayah, or studying this surah, these questions popped in my head. And no question is off limits. There's no such thing as a good question or a bad. Just if it's a question about what Allah is saying, It's a good question.
It's worthy to know it.
That's right.
Okay.
And now you are on a quest to find the answer to those questions.
Yeah.
And okay, so maybe you go to a commentary, a tafsir, right? And maybe you find some answers to your questions.
Okay.
Let's look at the possibilities, multiple choice. One, you found the exact answer you were looking for, and now you're satisfied. You had your aha moment. Life can move on.
Right.
Okay. Option two, the Mufassir didn't even think about your question. The Mufassir had his own questions and he answered his own questions, but your question wasn't on his menu.
Then you're still left confused.
You're still left, okay, well, I didn't get my answer there.
Right.
But thankfully, we have an entire library of different Mufassirin, and maybe some of them asked the same question you asked.
Okay.
That might happen.
Okay.
But that you may not have access to all of that stuff, right? So now you need to maybe connect with somebody who may have access to that stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's your step two. Step three is maybe, and this happens in my case,
Yeah.
I am looking for an answer in one tafsir, I didn't find it. Second tafsir, I didn't find it. 15 tafsir later, I didn't find it. 26 tafsir later, I haven't found it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
What am I gonna do? Will I ever find the answer?
I still have my question. So now I'm gonna, given the position I'm in, I have access to scholars, researchers, thinkers, and I start picking their brain. And they're like, well, what did the Mufassirin say? And I said, well, they didn't say anything because I checked. So now we have original discussions about the Qur'an. We have original conversations about the Qur'an. And we try to think of what could be an appropriate answer to that question, right?
Right.
And with humility, because I can't say that even a mufassir in the end has a level of humility. Like, this is what, to the best of my knowledge, what Allah is saying, right? But they're not going to say, this is absolutely 100% the only thing it means nothing else, etc. Right? But that process, this mental process of really thinking about what was said, analyzing, picking apart what was said,
Yeah.
this is you building a connection with the Qur'an. And everything else you do, like the recitation of the Qur'an, is supposed to be slow and rhythmic.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because it gives you time to think about what God is saying.
Yeah.
The memorization of the Qur'an, the institution is there so you can repeat what Allah is saying, so you can keep thinking about it.
Yeah.
So like all the other things we do with the Qur'an, we're supposed to support this one thing, a thoughtful connection with the Qur'an.
Right. Right.
That's what we're supposed to do. Right?
And I love how, the more you're explaining about this, what I gather is that people always assume that connection with the Quran should be an instant thing. Like, when you read it, you read an ayah and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Fantastic. Let's read the next ayah, for example. But even the whole process of it, looking for the actual meaning, is in itself building that connection.
Yeah. So even that, I'll add one last step. Okay. So let's just say you figured out what this ayah means or what the answers to your questions are.
Yeah.
There's still one more very important piece left. What is this ayah saying to you at the end of all of that?
Okay.
Like, why is this important? Why would Allah say this to me?
Yeah.
Like, after all is said and done, okay, he said this, and this is the story behind it. This is the language analysis. This is the history analysis.
Yeah.
All that other good stuff.
Yeah.
At the end of it, the question you have to ask yourself is, why did Allah choose to say this to me?
Right.
Now that I understand it,
Yeah.
I understand what it means, but I still don't understand what it means to me.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that's the key to contemplation. That's the final step. And in that step is where you truly find a connection with Allah.
Subhanallah.
You find a connection with the Quran, and through it you find a connection with Allah. Right?
Yeah, and like you said, different ayah might appeal differently to different people. It could connect to you in different ways.
Absolutely.
Like someone could read this ayah and be like, oh my God, it felt like it was meant for me. Like, as for myself, every time I read the Quran translations, I can read and speak Arabic yet, right?
Right.
The ayahs that speak the most to me is every time Allah speaks about forgiveness. It has always connected to me on a very personal level. Every time, even if, the ayah before that, Allah says, if you do this, you'll be punished, hellfire. The next one, but if you repent, I will forgive you. I can really just get in tears every time I read ayahs about forgiveness. As for you yourself, are there any particular ayah that every time you go through, it will really touch your heart?
I actually go through a mental exercise of not looking for things that connect with me. I actually stop at what I couldn't connect with.
Oh, how so?
Because Allah is saying this to me. Why am I skipping it? Even if a little bit. Ooh. Even if mentally I get it, but I like this other part more. So now I'm letting my bias dictate what part of the Quran gets more weight in my conscience.
Right.
I don't want that. I want to surrender my personal bias to Allah's word, and I want to be able to give every part of Allah's word its due, right? And so I think what we have is a culture, and it's not a making of mine or yours.
Yeah.
It's the oxygen we're breathing now,
Yeah.
and that is that content is catered to you. The algorithm decides what you're going to see on your feed.
Right.
Right.
That's a good analogy there.
Right. So as a result, we've sort of been programmed to incline towards certain kinds of messaging, certain kinds of content, certain kinds of video messages or whatever else. Right. Now that impacts the wiring in our brain, I'm pretty sure, over time. It builds certain neural pathways. And we bring those neural pathway programmings to the Quran and say, well, the kind of content I am used to seeing, let's see what of this connects best with my pre-existing condition, right? And I come to, so what I've done with my team, because when we study a surah, we spend a lot of time on a surah. We spend a month on a 3-page surah, full time, like a whole team of us, right? And our entire goal is to say, what is Allah saying in this one word? What is Allah saying in this one ayah? And in that month, nothing else exists.
Yeah.
Some pretty heavy stuff going on in the Quran. The thing is, and this happens to me every time, all of my team, at the end of every study, even now, 2024, this is me studying Quran since 2000, 1999. 25 years. Now I study something like Surah Al-Muzammil or Muddathir, which I've studied dozens of times before.
Yeah.
But now I'm taking a deep dive,
Yeah.
right? And at the end of it, the whole team and I are like, yeah, we just got humbled. We didn't know anything. Like we just got completely re-educated, right? And which makes me realize that the Quran, I think the biggest tragedy with the Quran and Muslims, myself included, I'm not exception, is we underestimate what it has. And the reason we underestimate it is we don't stop and contemplate. We don't stop and study and ask ourselves questions. We don't create a deep connection. Now, let me give you one more analogy.
Yeah.
Say my mom. I love my mom. I take care of my mom. I talk to my mom all the time.
Yeah.
But you know what? Most of the time, we end up having the same conversations with people we love. Did you eat? Are you doing okay? How's the weather? Are you tired? Do you need medicine? How was your day? Do you want to go here? It's the same 20 questions.
But you get different answers every time you ask.
Right. But there's no depth now.
Right.
So now when I sit back sometimes with my mom and I say, so when you were young, what was your relationship like with your dad?
Oh, that's a completely different question.
It's a completely different question. And now, because I only know her as a mom, I don't know her as a child.
That's true.
Right? And I start asking her these really probing, deep questions, not about what I see in front of me, but what's behind that. The person behind that was there even before I was born.
Yeah.
Right? I want to know that person too.
Yeah.
Right? And what does it do over time? It makes a really deep connection with me and my mom. Right? I understand her better.
Yeah.
And she also sees in me, when I do that, she sees in me someone who wants to know her more than just someone who has a relationship with her now. I want to know her as a person.
Yeah.
Not just as mom.
Not just as a parent, right? But you're
Right.
seeing her as a fellow human being.
Right.
With a story.
With a story that I value.
Yeah.
Because, who cares?
Yeah.
Right?
We all have stories, but do you even want to know about
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. What do you want to care about? What's for dinner? What do you want to care about? Where do you want to go? So we develop shallow even though they're loving relationships, they're at some level shallow.
Yeah.
And so the same way with the Quran, you could just read the translation. I know what it says. And now you have a connection, but at some level it's shallow,
Yeah.
right? I'd like that to be a deep connection.
Yeah.
So the quantity of the Quran I know becomes less important.
Yeah.
The quality of it becomes more important,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Yeah, but when you connect it to families as well. Yeah, we meet each other every day. We probably stay with each other, same questions. But I believe that's why, even when it comes to the Quran, it's really important to not just read it once and okay, I've khatamed the Quran once. And that's it. I've done my part.
Yeah.
I'm a good Muslim. I've
Yeah.
done it already. I can die peacefully now. But honestly, will we ever properly complete the Quran?
if all of humanity was engaged in diving into the Qur'an, we still wouldn't be able to complete the Qur'an.
There you go. There you go. To have that constant connection and inquisition, to always want to know what else is there to understand about the Quran. It has to always be there.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the younger generation right now, we always have this hustle culture. I'm sure even in New York as well. People are like, yeah, we're young.
Well, I'm
we're
in
Gen
Texas now,
Zs."
so I slowed down.
But the young generation now, to them, it's like they're always chasing for success, which is obviously great. Success is something that's very important. We need to always push ourselves further, push the envelope further. But what exactly is success? Because most of the time, we think we're trying to reach this particular destination. When we're already there, it's always not enough. It's like we're lacking fulfillment, we're lacking contentment. So in the Quran, what does it say about success, Ustaz?
Success is a big subject in the Quran, success and loss. In fact, it's the replacement of happiness. Yeah. Happiness isn't actually a major subject in the Quran. No. Now, on the subject of success, the Quran, if I was to describe in easiest language what I can gather from the discourse of the Quran and success and failure, it's that a human being has to live a life of continuous struggle. And the struggle itself, a life of struggle itself, is success. So accomplishments are not associated with success.
Right.
Struggle is.
Like every time we're surviving a test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us.
Yeah, and even while you're going through it, the fact that you're going through it successfully itself is a success.
Right.
The thing that Allah will count on Judgment Day will not be our accomplishments.
Yeah.
It will be our efforts.
Right.
And what I say often in my lectures is that in this world, efforts are not rewarded. Accomplishments are rewarded.
In this world.
In this world. So for example, these camera folks here are putting in a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But let's just say somehow there was a power surge and all the cameras got fried.
Yeah.
And none of this got recorded.
Yeah.
Right? So from the time and effort point of view, from the labor point of view, from the output point of view, this entire exercise was a failure.
Right.
Right? Because you didn't get the results. Because everything is, the gauge is results. But in our relationship with Allah, Allah has, and this is how the world works. The world doesn't reward effort. The world rewards outcomes.
Yeah.
Both fighters in a cage match are putting in effort.
Yeah.
But only one of them is going to get the reward.
And gets glorified.
And the other one, doesn't matter how rigorously they trained, they're going to go into depression and they're going to become a loser. And that's it, in that one moment, right? But in our relationship with Allah, it's not what you get at the end. It's actually the entire effort that's rewarded. So somebody's going to Hajj, but they started saving for Hajj 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That entire savings of 10 years is being rewarded. Every deposit they make into that savings or whatever they were doing, all the prep they were doing, all the stuff they were learning, the flight they were getting, like that effort is actually what's being rewarded. And what do people congratulate you on? If you were making all that effort and you didn't get to go.
They would not congratulate you.
I'm so sorry you didn't get to go.
Try again.
Right. And it may be that the person who made so much effort and didn't get to go, and then there's someone who has the money, has the resources, has the visa, whatever, and they got to go very easily, effortless, right? It may be that on Judgment Day, the person who didn't go to Hajj has more reward
than the one who
went, because the thing that's being rewarded is the effort, right? So success with Allah is associated with effort. Now, what does that mean religiously for us? It means that someone who's memorized the Qur'an is not better. Right? So you start, and I'm not saying they're not great people, they're wonderful people.
Yeah.
Someone who has a lot of knowledge. Knowledge is an accomplishment. Memorization is an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing Arabic is an accomplishment.
Right.
Right? And you're like, since I don't know Arabic, since I don't have that accomplishment, I'm behind.
Yeah.
Well, now we're actually taking the worldly metrics of accomplishment and we're applying that to the spiritual dimension. Yeah. That's a problem. Someone who is struggling to learn, Allah is not rewarding how good their Arabic got. Yeah. Allah is rewarding the hours of struggle. Right? That's what's actually valued. So that hour of struggle, and they couldn't even say ayn properly. is a failure in front of their teacher, but it's a massive success with the angels that are writing this down.
Right.
Right? So it's a shift in worldview.
Yeah.
But now, so that's on the religious side.
Yeah.
Now, success in the worldly sense.
Yeah.
Success in the worldly sense in Islam is if you were able to accomplish two things.
Okay.
One, if you were able to do right by people.
Okay.
So I'm going to die and I could look back at my life and I could say, I didn't wrong my parents. I didn't wrong my children. I didn't wrong my spouse. I didn't wrong my business partner. I didn't do wrong by people.
Yeah.
Right? So in the worldly sense, the first principle is I did no harm. I was just, I was fair.
Right.
Right? And the second piece of success is I was able to leave some kind of a positive legacy. Something I did that created more good in the world than was there before. Allah allowed me to do something good with my life.
To
add value
to people's lives.
These two things are the metrics of success.
Right.
That's essentially it. So I think even worldly success, when you're hustling and you're trying to get your name out there, a lot of folks, for example, they want to get into in becoming an influencer, for example. What does it mean to become an influencer? Well, I just want to have a lot of followers. I want to have a continuously growing number at the bottom of that
Free
page. Endorsements and all this. Yeah. So, but what value did I add?
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like you become a bottom feeder for new content.
Yeah.
Like, now what can I say? What can I say? What can I record? What can I film to build? But what am I actually running after some kind of meaning, or am I running after a number at the bottom of a screen?
Yeah.
Right? So, and if that is the case, then quite literally that, how the Prophet ﷺ said that the person who is enslaved to money, the worshiper of money, has been destroyed. Well, currency comes in different forms, right?
Yeah.
And social media following has become a new kind of currency.
Oh yeah.
So there are people that worship that currency and do everything they can to get more of that currency.
Even if they're doing something very nonsensical, or
Right.
something that's
Humiliating,
Sharia.
offensive,
Yeah.
controversial, whatever sells, whatever's the flavor of the month.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that's the height of failure. In fact, what's really wild in the Qur'an, early revelations, is that the wealthiest in Mecca were described as the biggest failures.
Really?
Yeah. To me, that's profound, because their society saw them as the most successful people.
Right.
Right? But the Jeff Bezoses and the Nikola Tesla and like these people, they were being seen as the failures, right?
Which is very ironic, right?
That's the Quran changing a worldview. Wow. That's the Quran. It's not denying wealth, and I don't want any of the folks that are watching to say the Quran is anti-wealth.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's anti-greed, which is completely different from anti-wealth.
Because in Islam, it's not prohibited for us to be rich, to actually, but it's about.
In fact, it's even encouraged. It's encouraged for you to. It's encouraged. Absolutely, it's encouraged. Actually, probably one of the most exhaustive guidelines in the Quran is how to be responsible with your money. That's, if there's a recurring theme in the Quran, it's the people who are irresponsible with their money versus the people that are responsible with their money.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
a recurring theme in the Quran.
Yes, absolutely. Financial guidance is the guidance. And everything, so many of the laws in Islam come back to financial responsibility. Wealth distribution and inheritance and giving sadaqah and, child support in the case of divorce.
Taking care of the money of the orphans.
Taking care of the orphan, the needy, the poor, freeing the slave, giving fidya. There's a constant distribution of wealth going on, but you can't give wealth if you don't have it.
That's true.
Right?
That's very, very true. I loved how you spoke about success, especially in an Islamic context, right? Because you said the success with Allah Ta'ala is with the efforts and not the outcome per se.
Right.
Yeah. So now, in this modern era, especially with social media and everything, it's always more tempting to, I wouldn't say flaunt your success, but sometimes share your success. I believe that sometimes people might not have the intention to be like, ooh, check me out, I'm on a holiday, I'm in Bali and all that. Maybe they're just happy, with the things that they've done. They've been working very hard and everything. They want to share about their family, or like having good food, which obviously is not the best thing to do. Some things need to be kept to yourself, especially when it comes to rizqi that Allah has given us. But this is where evil eye can come in. And this is something that's heavily talked about in Malaysia as well, And so in Malaysia, we say this, be careful, penyakit ain is real, and it's always been talked about. To what extent can we actually share our success on social, not just on social media,
so
publicly?
Let's leave this conversation, let's leave the Islamic side of this conversation for a moment.
Okay.
Let's just understand the psychological side of this conversation first. For the vast majority of human history, when somebody had a good time, they didn't broadcast it. Right? There was no need to broadcast it. Nobody went to a beautiful mountaintop somewhere and then said, I need to draw a painting of this to make sure I take it back to my village and they see what I saw. And they were able to be in the moment for themselves without the need to let random strangers know that they had pasta with extra marinara sauce. Right? Okay.
Down to the tiniest details nowadays, right?
Right. So now there's this somehow, no. I'm having a good experience. I just want other people to know about it. My question is, why do you want other people to know it? What is this insatiable need for you to broadcast your joy to someone else? Because I want them to be happy. Really, would you see a random stranger enjoying something and say, that makes me happy? Or, which is actually the case, would you look at that and say, boy, I wish I had that. My God, I don't have it.
Right.
And we are feeding into this comparison culture where the most influential people are showing us their most beautiful experiences. And we say, well, I want to compete with that, so I'm going to pretend to be one of those influencers. And I'm going to put a filter on my face 18 different ways and say, just woke up. Right?
I'm just like you too.
Just like... And so to me, before we talk about this as don't worry about ayn. I think this screams insecurity, personally. I think that there's a massive need to be heard and to be seen.
Right.
And the people who, any human being who has a deep need to be seen in that way, something inside them says, I'm invisible. Something inside them says, there's something missing, and until people see me, I feel like I don't even exist.
Right.
And the reason, if I dig deeper, the reason I would feel that I don't exist is because I don't do anything that actually has any value or meaning. So meaning comes to me now from likes and shares and mashallahs and emojis and all this other stuff. So to me, the issue isn't even ayn. The issue to me is we're not tackling the psycho-spiritual crisis that we don't even realize we've fallen into.
Right.
Now, sharing a good moment with family and friends, the baby just stood up for the first time.
Is that okay?
That's family and friends. That's not random strangers.
Right.
That's not like, look, I have, some following online. And I understand the algorithm. I know how the algorithm works. I can get 10 times the views that I have now if I wanted. And I know exactly what I have to do. I have to put up more things about my personal life. I have to broadcast more of what is intimate entirely to me. Right? And if I was a worshiper of the algorithm, I would very much be inclined to do that. Right? But the issue is that to me, social media is not where we exist. Social media is a device, like your car, like your laundry machine. It's just a device. Use it for what it's good for. Use it for a purpose, right? And outside of that, don't get sucked into it as if your existence doesn't have meaning if it's not online. Like now we've gotten so crazy that if you don't make a dua online, did you even make dua?
It's like we say, Alhamdulillah, I just made dua this morning. Did you really make dua, or was it just a caption, right?
No, and it's the flip. For example, a crisis happens in the world. We didn't see you post anything about the crisis. Did you even make dua for the crisis? Because I didn't know you don't go straight to Allah. You first go to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and then from there it goes to Allah. I didn't realize that there's a... And then I have to make sure I pass your value test. Because you are keeping an eye on my moral compass.
Yeah.
And because I have to run it by you first. Oh, he made dua. Oh, okay, now he's all right.
Yeah.
And we don't realize how psychotic this is.
That's true.
How absolutely insane this is.
Yeah. It's like in order for something to be real, it has to be on social media first.
Right. Why?
It's like, let's just bypass the fact that I've prayed, personally, genuinely with all ta'ala. I need to put it on social media first
And
to make it real.
this is now corrupting the fundamentals of our religion. Let me tell you how.
Yeah.
Some things are meant to be between you and Allah, right? Worship, for example, is meant to be between you and Allah.
Yeah.
Now people are holding up a mushaf, taking a picture of it, reciting Qur'an after Fajr, alhamdulillah, hashtag tajweed, right? This was between you and Allah.
Yeah.
Or people are taking, I don't know how they do it, but they're taking the pictures of themselves making dua.
Yeah. In front of the Kaaba also. Like,
Like, where did you put it? Like, did you take some random guy doing tawaf and say, hold on a second, pause for a second, and hold on your tawaf. I got
the gram.
For the sake of Allah. This is for the sake of Allah.
Yeah.
This is the new. You don't need to have idols in front of the Kaaba for it to be shirk. This is an idol. Your desire to project yourself has become a god for you.
Yeah.
And that to me is a deep problem. It's a deep problem. I don't care if you write Alhamdulillah, MashaAllah, or hashtag Islam or whatever.
Tabarakallah.
All of that is fake. Sorry. That none of that's authentic. Because if it was authentic, the only one who needs to know about it is Allah.
That's it.
Right? There's a message you have to give to humanity. And then somebody even asked me, Ustadh, if you go to Umrah and you want to inspire others, you should just take a selfie by the Haram. And I was like, I'm pretty sure the humanity's been inspired to go to Hajj and Umrah without your encouragement.
Yeah.
Nobody went to Umrah since the dawn of Islam and then wrote a letter back. By the way, this place is really amazing. You guys should totally check it out.
Yep.
It's been working pretty good without your. So don't pretend this is about inspiring somebody else, please.
Because of you,
we
went.
We all have a fundamental basic intelligence to tell. This is about you, not about the haram.
Yeah. That's so true, and it's so worrying how it happens rampantly now. You see it all the time.
I don't call any individual out for it, but as a culture, we have turned this into a joke.
Yeah,
it's literally a joke, and I think it's the biggest mockery of our religion.
Which it's sad. It's really sad because sometimes the sincerity aspect can really, really decrease. Every time you put it on social media, right? Like giving charity is really a great act. Alhamdulillah, subhanallah. But then there has to be a camera there. Soup kitchen time. It's trying to feed the homeless. Alhamdulillah, done my part. You should do too. It's like masking itself as if like this is an inspirational post.
Let me tell you what the inspiration is. The reality of it. You know what the inspiration is?
What?
Somebody's going out there doing that. And what else somebody else is inspired to do? They're inspired to turn a camera on and do that too.
Oh my gosh, that is so true.
They're not inspired to do anything else but follow that behavior. It's not the worship that's inspiring. It's the broadcast of the worship that's inspiring.
So true, Stas. That is so true. Okay, with this hashtag, Alhamdulillah, done my part. That's one post. Tomorrow, 10 posts. Instead of us saying the deed has, been spreading, it's that kind of post is spreading. Na'uzubillah min zalik, maybe distance ourselves from doing something like that.
Yeah, look, social media is a remarkable advancement in human connection.
Yeah.
It's one of the most amazing developments in humanity, actually. Mm-hmm. The way that human beings can connect with each other now than they could ever connect before. Yeah. So we have an opportunity to leverage it for amazing good. Like, if you actually have something good to say, like I'm actually a fan of TikTok, personally. I really like TikTok.
Right.
Because...
What's your algorithm like, by the way? Dancing?
It's pretty cool.
dancing trends?
My algorithm is really cool. I have historians, scientists, comparative religion experts, philosophers. I've got political scientists, journalists that are on the ground, actually even young activists that are discovering things, that are talking about actual on-the-ground reality things. Yeah. And I'm telling you, like as a student of political science, as a student of psychology, I'm getting access to experts in certain fields on TikTok that I would never imagine having access to.
Right.
And, sometimes if they had written a 100-page paper and they've made a 5-minute TikTok video, that 5-minute TikTok video is more educational. Like they were able to summarize the education. So it's not just about cats playing pianos.
You can find anything on the platform nowadays, right?
Right. But I think it can be used for really educating yourself.
Absolutely.
Like, look at what it did for Gaza, for example.
Yeah.
Like, had it not been for TikTok, I don't think that the political momentum in the world and the ICC, the ICJ, none of that stuff would be where it is, in my opinion, had it not been for at least the least shadow banned platform, right? TikTok. And the kind of awareness that was raised, the kind of exposition that was done.
Yeah.
So it's a force for a lot of good. Like, you could do some amazing good with it. So now imagine there are people that are challenging the greatest oppressions in the world.
Yeah.
And then there are people that are posting their slice of pizza.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a whole world in there.
Right. So where do you stand? Where do you fit in all of
Yeah.
this? Right. So ask yourself this question. Yeah. And if you don't have something amazing to say, don't feel like you're you have failed as a human being if you didn't make a post.
Yeah, that's true.
You didn't. I promise you, you're still great.
If it's so obliged,
you can be great
right?
offline too. You're still a human being offline.
Yeah. You still exist, okay? But you see, on social media, right, it could be a double-edged sword, right? Because it's really accessible. That's one great thing about social media. Like you said, our algorithm, it could stem from like psychology to seerah, all sorts of things can go through our feed, right? But could it also be dangerous when people don't really fact check? Because nowadays they're like, oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine recently, which I'm very, very happy for her, she started wearing the hijab and she said, Keanu, my algorithm finally changed. It's no longer just the crazy trends that's always ever changing every week, right? It's now like, I'm seeing like Nouman Ali Khan, I'm seeing Mufti Meng, great. And then like the more you scroll, you see some other things as well where people don't even fact check anymore. They see some a 1 minute video of someone saying this is this. Exactly. Did you hear about this? I saw this on TikTok.
So here's what I think about that.
Yeah.
Islamic, if you want to say content, right, is different categories. So there is such a thing as a reminder, and a reminder can take 30 seconds.
Right.
A reminder could be a short. It could be a reel. It could be a YouTube reel. It could be a TikTok video. And it could be profound. Then there are things in our religion that are nuanced. There are stories that if you only know the surface level, you're going to misinterpret the story. There are laws in Islam. If you don't understand the depth of them, you're going to misinterpret those laws. They cannot be condensed into a 30-second discussion. They are, at the very least, if you want to use modern lingo or social media lingo, they're podcast level discussions. They're an hour, hour and a half, 2 hour before we understand this ayah, right? The danger is when we take those discussions that belong in a long form where things need to be understood from multiple angles before you really understand the conclusion. And we say, you know what, for distribution purposes, let's take a 30-second clip from here, a 1 minute clip from here, put that out there. You're creating more confusion and more disinformation than information. Like there are lectures of mine that I've given on sensitive topics that I've instructed my team not to make any shorts from ever. Because I know the only way that this will make sense to someone is if they go from minute 1 to minute 120. Otherwise, they should not be consuming this. There are other things you can consume. There are other things you should be consuming, not this. Right? And of course, this is a more recent concern of mine. I went to a group of youth in different countries. The last one was Australia, actually, where I asked this. I said, so there's a bunch of teenagers. I asked, how do you learn Islam? They said, YouTube. I said, okay, well, how on YouTube? Well, it just shows up on my feed. I was like, okay. So an algorithm is deciding what you learn in your religion. Right?
Certain parts.
Like a machine is deciding, technically your sheikh. What's your next lesson is coming from your swipe. Right? Now that's problematic because when you have short form content, right? Or randomized content, because the internet is randomized, right? You're just gonna, if the algorithm picks up you like inspiring content, and the algorithm picks up that you like positive content, so it's just feeding you a bunch of positive stuff all the time. You're the positive Islam guy. Somebody else likes angry Islamic content. Somebody needs to say Astaghfirullah al-Azim, La hawla wa la quwwata kuffar,
hellfire.
Right, and now they got the angry Islam feed. Right, and then somebody else likes the Islamic version of the UFC, like somebody picks up on somebody and like rips them apart, sort of dismantles them, refutes them, critiques them. Look at what they're saying in minute number 5. Look at what they're saying in minute number 7. And now all you get is somebody feeding on somebody else content. Right. And so these are different kinds of, you can call it all Islamic content. It's really not. If you want to grow as a Muslim, then maybe some of that in the beginning, that little bit of, a dopamine hit from some inspirational video, even if it was mine or somebody else, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, that was okay when you were in your first steps.
Yeah.
You cannot afford to stay there. You need to have a plan. Listen, I'm going to study the entire life of the Prophet ﷺ. I need to either read a book on it, I need to listen to a podcast on it, I need to listen to a lecture series on it. I'll find something and I'll filter out everything else. I'm just going to commit to this for 6 months. This is all I'm doing. This is my Islam right now. Focus, learn to focus.
Yeah.
Because what social media Islam is a diffusion of focus. It's 1,000 interesting different things. And at the end of consuming all of that, you will remember and know nothing. Yeah. Actually, the best thing that will come out of that is you are scatter-minded. Right. And you have no facts about anything. Yeah. Right?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that,
right.
Just scattered there, right?
So if somebody wants to learn with me, for example, get more serious, I say, okay, let me help you with Fatiha. Yeah. Then let's do Baqarah together. Then let's do Ali Imran. Then let's go through the whole Qur'an little by little by little. Let's do that. Yeah. Right? At least as you're consuming, you are building off of something you consumed the day before.
Yeah.
You're not somewhere else randomly and then somewhere else randomly and somewhere else randomly.
Off tangent.
Right. So, and that's the other, social media is great for somebody getting some first step.
Okay. It's like a catalyst, perhaps.
Right. But it cannot be
a long-term thing.
It can't.
Okay.
It can, and if it is, you're just going to end up really not understanding your religion. Yeah. And your religion will be very volatile.
That's a very good point, Ustaz. Now, before we started rolling just now, before you arrived, me and the team were just talking about something that we've all been such a big fan of, Story Night.
Okay.
Story Night is a brilliant thing that you have started, that we are all very curious to know where that idea came from. I mean, you're so animated on stage. It really feels like this is like stand-up comedy plus theater all combined in one. And you could really capture the attention of the audience in like 2 hours without them even flinching, without even leaving to the bathroom. That's not something easy to do. What made you start Story Night, Ustaz?
I read, it was an academic paper. This was in 2000, I'm going to say 11. I think it was 2011.
Okay.
No, even sooner. It was 2000. No, my God, it was 2006.
Wow.
Oh, 2006. I read this academic paper by Professor Mustansir Mir on the dialogue between Moses and the Pharaoh. And it was a literary analysis. Right. Professor Mir, many people don't know him, a brilliant author on the Qur'an, did his PhD in Quranic studies at the University of Michigan after having studied in Aligarh in India before then. Knows Urdu, Persian, Arabic, English, all at the Shakespearean level. Like, he's incredible. Anyway, so he wrote this dialogue and he was talking about the escalations and de-escalations in the dialogue in the paper. Right. And of course, it's an academic paper written by a professor, so it's very professorial.
Yeah.
But I'm reading this thing and going, really, the Qur'an has that? The Qur'an has elements of drama? It has elements of dialogue? It has emotional ups and downs? Does it? And then I was like, but I've never heard anybody talk about it in this way. Then it just strangely dawned on me when Musa is standing in front of Firaun, alayhi salam, like, this is a real thing that happened with real emotions, with real tension, with real fear, anxiety, anger, grief, manipulation. Like, all of those tactics and emotions were in the room. There was a tension in the air. And the Qur'an is capturing all of that in its words. But when I say this word means this, and this mufassir said this, and this tafsir said this, and this book says this, and this hadith says this, then I'm presenting it academically, but I'm not presenting the essence of what happened in the room.
Right.
So I wanted to leave all the academic stuff behind for this exercise and just tell the story as if you're there.
Yeah.
Because when you're there, nobody's stopping and saying this word means this or this word means that. You're in the room.
You could really feel it.
You could feel it.
In it.
Yeah. And so I did this with kids early on, and it really resonated with them. Wow. And I was like, Then I there's a formula in my life. If it works with kids, it works with anybody.
It's like a bedtime story in a way, like just how they're looking forward to listening to a story before bed.
Yeah, no, the bedtime stories put you to sleep. This one keep you awake. That's why I get so upset. Somebody says, "Ustad, when is story time?" I was like, "It's not story time. It's story night." Story time. Story time is to put you to sleep, man.
But your bedtime stories is the fun bedtime story when he's going to sleep at 2 a.m. But with your story night, because it really feels like the prep for like stand-up comedians with their material, right? How do you prepare for that?
I don't prepare.
You don't prepare.
It just comes out
and
weird.
it's everything that all the knowledge that you've accumulated.
No, so the story night is the hardest thing to prepare for of all my lectures.
Oh,
yes.
really?
Yes, because the issue there is I want to capture the essence of the story without compromising any of the academic or the research foundation for it, without making it sound like research, right? So I don't want to use the word dumbing it down, but the simplification process is actually a really difficult process.
To break it down.
To break it down to
layman terms.
Because I'm targeting an 11-year-old who doesn't know anything about Islam. And I'm telling him that story, right? And if I can get him to be interested in the story, that's story night, right? Non-Muslims have attended story night. Like sometimes I do it in a hotel ballroom, and the hotel ballroom staff stops working and they start listening to the story, and they'll come tell me afterwards. Wow. That was pretty amazing. Is that the Bible? No, it's not the Bible. It's the one after the Bible. There's one after the Bible? Yeah. Here's a copy. So. But yeah, that's the exciting thing about story night. And the other component of that is something that I try to really emphasize is that the stories in the Qur'an are very, like, they're selected by Allah out of a much larger pool. Imagine the ocean and Allah decided to take a few drops. Right? The question then is, why did he skip all those other? Why did this one get selected? So the Quran is extremely selective in the stories that it chooses to tell, because many stories in the Quran are actually biblical.
Right.
Okay. But the biblical versions are much, much, much more elaborate, and there's a lot more going on in the biblical stories. So why is the Quran being so selective of all of Jewish history and taking this one story for the Israelites? Or these two stories for the Israelites. That means that my understanding of that is that the stories of the Quran, the ones that were chosen, were the ones that were always going to be reborn. So whatever story it is, that will happen again in history and again and again and again. It's going to continue to live. It's not a dead story, it's a living story. Which in the end, it'll become my story and your story. So we're reading something that happened thousands of years ago, but we're actually learning something about ourselves. And so the objective of story night is to draw that line between this is happening thousands of years ago, but this is happening right now as we speak.
And it will keep happening.
It'll keep happening. And then if I'm able to show somebody, oh my God, that's exactly what's happening right now, right? That's story night, in the end.
Now, if you could just go back a little bit to our first part of the conversation about, your love for discovering new parts of the Quran, rereading different ayah over time. Are there any recent discoveries? You rereading. I'm sure there are plenty. But one that really sticks out.
There, two things have emerged, because more recently I've been studying the early revelations.
Okay.
So the surahs that were revealed, you could argue maybe the first 3-4 years. And two things come out of that. One of them is the Qur'an's way to describe the enemies of Islam. That it's not one way that it describes them. It describes them in multiple ways. And one of the coolest discoveries recently was there are 3 archetypes. An archetype is kind of a character that represents a category. Okay? So there's the Abu Lahab archetype, there's the Abu Jahl archetype, and there's the Walid ibn Mughira archetype. I found this to be fascinating. The Abu Lahab archetype is someone he was very good looking. He was a celebrity. His wife was considered the most beautiful woman in the area. They were extremely wealthy. And they were also extremely mean, rude, ruthless, cruel to their servants, known for stealing charity money. They were a dirty celebrity couple. Okay. And he was just, beautiful on the outside, but an ugly, ugly character and absolutely ruthless. Absolutely ruthless. Nobody was uglier to the Prophet ﷺ than Abu Lahab and his wife, right? So there's the enemy that has no moral compass. They may have material. That's what he represents. But they will leave no stone unturned to cause you harm. They have no breaks. They have no restraints. Nothing is off limits. Right? It's Abu Lahab. Ugly. Then there's Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl is an enemy that, and of course, Surah Lahab dedicated to Abu Lahab, right? Then Abu Jahl is an enemy that, I'll give you an analogy. We were working on our campus in Texas, in Bayina, and we had some construction work we had to do. And we were looking for different people to put their offer for the construction bid. And this company came in to compete, and the guy was, proper Texan. And he says, "What do y'all do here?" And I was like, "Oh, we teach the Qur'an." "Islam?" "Oh, no, I'm not doing this job. I believe y'all follow the religion of the devil. I'm not doing it. I don't care how much money you got here. I don't want a penny." I respect that. I respect the fact that he stands by what he believes. Right? So Abu Jahl represents an enemy of Islam who believes Islam to be bad for Makkah. He genuinely believes it's not in Makkah's national interest. It's a threat against our safety. It's a threat against our culture. I want to preserve our way. And on that principle, he stands against Islam. As ignorant as that is, at least he's not wretched and vile. He's a principled enemy. He's the kind of enemy that will fight you. And if there's a death in your family, he'll also send you condolences and then fight you the next day. The honorable enemy, right? He was so honorable as an enemy, even though he's an enemy, that Allah said in Surah Al-Alaq, أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَى الْهُدَى أَوْ أَمَرَ بِالتَّقْوَى. Did you see, had he been committed to guidance or commanded to taqwa, meaning Allah sees that he could have been a great believer. He could have been another Umar radiallahu anhu. And even Allah saw the potential in him. Because he's on the wrong side of the fence, but he's still honorable about it. That's your second category. But then the most interesting is the third category. That's Walid. Walid and the like are rich, well-spoken, strategic. They are friendly in your face and stab you in the back while hugging you.
They're hypocrites, backstabbers.
They're backstabbers, hypocrites, politicians, business people. They're
manipulative.
They look at other human beings just as a piece on the chessboard. They don't look at them as a human being. They're constantly looking, what's the angle I can use here?
Like to their own benefit.
To their own benefit, right. So if I'm going to accept Islam, what's that going to do for me? If I reject Islam, how should I reject Islam that's going to maximize my profile?
Oh my goodness.
Right? And those are complicated people because they don't come to you as an enemy. They come to you as a friend. Right? And so the Qur'an goes out of its way to expose Walid's character in detail more than Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl because they're obvious.
This is the more dangerous kind.
This is the most dangerous kind and the most invisible kind. So the Qur'an in Surah Al-Qalam, in Surah Al-Muddathir, in multiple surahs goes out of its way to give a deep psychological profile of these sneaky people and what they're going to do to your message and how they're going to do it. What strategies are they going to employ? And the Prophet ﷺ was given this knowledge early on in the seerah. It's as if the Prophet ﷺ wasn't just being given a spiritual message, he was being given the entire strategic map of who his obstacles are going to be and how they're going to operate and how he needs to be aware of that and yet still carry on anyway. Right? So that was one of the more recent learnings that I thought was very profound because the Qur'an is extremely sophisticated in understanding messaging, in understanding politics, in understanding media propaganda, right? And we have a lot to learn about because again, Walid is highlighted because it's not just Walid, it's an archetype. So there's Walids now, right? There's Abu Jahals now, there's Abu Lahabs now.
Absolutely.
Right?
We see them a lot. All those three categories are still everywhere now.
That's correct, yeah. So studying that and then looking through that lens at our landscape is, I think, absolutely crucial. Inshallah.
Now, Ustaz, the final one from you. Perhaps there are people out there who they know deep in their heart that they want to become better Muslims, but all they're seeing is that Quran on their table that has been sitting there for the past few years, past few months. It's so difficult for them to just take it and start reading it and to start studying it. What can you say to them? Or what is the first step they can take? Should they start with like reading the hadith first? Or is it jumping straight to the Quran? What would your advice be, Ustaz?
I think the first question isn't what do you pick up first. The first question is, what's stopping you?
Right.
I can't make excuses for myself. So I can't make excuses for anybody else. And if you aren't seeing that this coming towards Allah and finding your way back to Allah is the single biggest priority in your life, no matter how much you've been ignoring it, if you can't see that, then I can't make you see it. You have to open your eyes yourself. I can only point you in some direction if you choose to listen, but in the end, you're going to have to open up your lids. You're going to have to do that. And then what do you do next? In my view, Allah gave us His ultimate final message, and we should treat it as such. It's not just a message for scholars or at a macro level for humanity. It's for me personally, you personally, and anybody else sitting listening personally, right? If they want to use my help, well and good. You know, I put Bayna TV together so somebody can start with Fatiha with me and go all the way to Nas with me. Right? At least just let me walk you through it. And even if you don't want to use my help, just go pick up a translation of the Qur'an. Like I said, start documenting your questions, engage with Allah's book. I'm telling you, the more you engage with Allah's book, the deeper connection you get with Allah's book, the deeper connection you get with Allah Himself. There are two phrases I'd like to conclude with. There's a phrase in the Qur'an that Allah uses with two variations. One variation is وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. Hold on to Allah's rope. Okay, the rope represents the Qur'an. So another way of saying, hold on to the Qur'an. Okay. Why the rope? Because one end of the rope is with me and the other end of the rope is with Allah.
Right.
And the Qur'an becomes my direct connection to Allah. Right? So hold on to Allah's rope. Like, you know, if somebody's falling in a well and I threw down my rope and I said, hold on to my rope. My rope means
end, them at the other
I'm
end.
the one pulling you up. So holding on to Allah's rope means Allah is going to pull you up through this rope. Whatever darkness you're in, Allah is going to pull you out from His word, right? Another phrase, this is variation one. Here's variation two. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِاللَّهِ. Hold on to Allah. Hold on to Allah. This time He didn't mention what? The rope. So once He says hold on to Allah's rope, the other time He says hold on to Allah. This is Allah's way of describing a profound reality. On the one hand, we are truly only connected to Allah through Allah's rope. That's one side of it. So now Allah is teaching us these are interchangeable. So how can you say you're holding on to Allah without holding on to Allah's rope? I hate to give you movie analogies, but imagine you're falling off a cliff and you're holding on to a rope that I've dangled down. And I scream down, hold on to my rope, right? And you're like, I'm slipping. I say, don't let go of me. I don't say, don't let go of my rope. What do I say?
Don't let me.
Same meaning. Same meaning. Because right now, I am the rope right now. Right? Now, that's one side of it. The other side of it is, don't make the relationship with the Qur'an the kind of relationship that doesn't give you Allah. In other words, you could have a relationship with the Qur'an, but it's not one that's tied to Allah. You just have a relationship with the Qur'an where you enjoy its recitation, or you have a relationship with the Qur'an where you're even teaching it, but you're teaching it and all you're thinking about is your audience. You're not thinking about Allah. You can have a non-spiritual relationship with the Qur'an. I know Muslim scholars, or non-Muslim scholars that are academics of the Qur'an that have been studying the Qur'an for 20, 30 years, that have double PhDs in Quranic studies, and they're not Muslim. They're holding on to the Qur'an, but they're not holding on to Allah. Why am I studying the Qur'an? I'm not studying the Qur'an for knowledge. I'm not studying the Qur'an to impress someone else. I'm not studying the Qur'an to improve my tajweed. I'm not studying the Qur'an to memorize the Qur'an. I'm studying the Qur'an because I'm looking for God. That's why I'm studying the Qur'an. I'm looking for God, and I'm looking for God to tell me how to live and what to do, how to find Him. This is how He told me how to find it. I can easily lose sight of that. Easily. I'm telling you, I'm a student of tafsir 25 years now. I could be studying one ayah so many tafsir, so many scholars, so many quotes, all that. I know all that's like 1,000 facts about this ayah.
Yeah.
I could write like a whole book on this ayah.
Yeah.
And at the end of all of that, I have to stop and say, but Allah's talking to me. So what's Allah saying to me? I have to bring it back to Allah instead of keeping it in the world of Quranic studies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the studies can become aspiritual. They can become non-spiritual very easily.
Yep.
So the flip side of that is truly holding on to the Quran happens when you're actually, while holding on to the Quran, holding on to Allah. So those two sides of the equation, once we have that, then it doesn't matter if you're a scholar or you just became Muslim yesterday, or even if you're non-Muslim, you can hold on to the Quran. I'll tell you one story that came in my head. Friend of mine, Rasim, he was in prison in France. And he was an underground fighter,
Okay.
illegal fighting. And he was very good, illegal boxing. And then the mafia picked him up. And they made him an enforcer. And then he used to train other gang members in fighting.
Right.
And then he got affiliated with like the Colombian mafia. And
It got worse and worse.
it got worse and worse. This is like a true mafia story.
story.
Yeah. Multiple mansions, Ferraris. He lived a life. And then he got caught on a fake passport or something. And then he was in a prison cell in France. Okay. And while he's in prison, he decides to figure out, because he had connections, I guess I'm going to start learning my religion. So he came across some of my videos.
Okay.
Started studying. Started learning Arabic. Started memorizing the Quran. Then he memorized Surah Yasin. Then I did a tafsir lecture series on Surah Yasin. He did it. And he's among a bunch of other prison mates, mostly non-Muslims. And he starts teaching them Surah Yasin.
Was he already a Muslim at the time?
He was Muslim, but majority of them weren't.
Okay.
So now they're memorizing one phrase in Surah Yasin, and they're watching my explanation video. And I didn't know this, right? And then they're watching the next, and they, like 25 guys memorized Surah Yasin with its explanation, became Muslim, and when they went back from prison, they went and explained Surah Yasin to their families, and they became Muslim.
Wow.
Okay? And this guy, in prison, I was, during COVID, I was teaching online Arabic classes.
Right.
And I didn't know, thousands of students. He was one of my students.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just say, hey, who'd like to call in? And I did a live call in.
Okay.
And there's, this guy just, calling in and talking to me about his progress and asking Arabic questions. He goes, by the way, Ustadh, I want to show you something. And he turns his camera around. And I see the bars of the prison and I see the prison yard. I'm like, what is going on here? Like because of how he transformed, because, prisoners are violent, they get, stabbings, but ever since they started coming under his influence, they started getting on their best behavior. So the warden offered him the internet access for a limited time and the ability to make calls. And I'm looking at this and going, Allah's guidance does not happen in any specified location for any specific kind of person.
Yeah.
Anyone who decides they're going to turn to Allah, Allah will make a way for them. So when someone says, I don't know where to begin, I think you haven't asked yourself the right questions yet. Because he never asked where to begin. He just began. And Allah did the rest, right? And I look at people like that and I'm jealous. Honestly, I'm jealous because these are people that are dear to Allah.
Yeah.
Like how far in the darkness can they be? And then Allah will give them light, right? These are gifted people.
Anywhere you are.
So, people say, Ustadh, you have so much knowledge. You've done so many videos. I know how little knowledge I have, but it doesn't matter if I did 1 million videos.
Yeah.
I still wonder if Rasim's efforts are 1 billion times bigger than anything I've ever done in my life. He makes me jealous. Because in the end, it's effort, isn't it?
And for him, you inspired him. But for you, I'm sure
he's my biggest inspiration. He's one of my biggest inspirations.
Subhanallah.
SubhanAllah. Allah protect him and his family. And keep the people that he's inspired to do good on the khair. MashaAllah, he's still studying Qur'an. He's got scholars teaching him, and he's just advancing and advancing and advancing. MashaAllah.
There was just so much that we've learned from you today, as always, Ustaz.
Alhamdulillah.
I particularly loved when you mentioned about holding onto the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to cling onto that rope. It's the only chain that really like locks us between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah's love will reach you no matter where you are.
That's right.
And where you are at in life, what you're going through, the people you are surrounding yourself with. Sometimes the people who are with the least amount of Muslims around them are the ones that Allah reach and gives us hidayah, right?
Yeah.
Once again, thanks for joining us on our Faith Fuel podcast. As always, learning so much from Ustadh Nouman. Thanks for joining us once again. And of course, if you're a big fan of all the episodes, please follow us on Faith Fuel. It's on every streaming platform as well as on YouTube as well. More to come, inshallah. My name is Keanu Azman. We'll see you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum. Bye-bye. Now, of course, since you're in Malaysia, these are our snacks that we have, our local snacks. Do you mind trying them with me today, Ustadh Nouman? It's completely up to you.
Is it?
It's only 10 a.m. It might be too early
So
for you
I had
to get
enough breakfast to last me 3 days. So just looking at this is scaring me.
I can tell from your face.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ustadh. Our production is saying no. You're still going to try it. At least one bite.
You're going to get an authentic reaction and then the entire nation is going to judge me. But okay.
You're going to love this.
Uh-huh.
You're going to love this.
Sure.
I'm better at describing food, but we call this rempeyek. For you, Ustadh.
Okay, thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's see.
Why are you... It's not a sports event. Why are you commenting like I just scored a goal? It's pretty good.
It's good?
Mm-hmm.